My ex-boyfriend started hitting on my best friend after we broke up, and now the two of them are spreading nasty rumors about me around campus. In the beginning, he was gentle, smart, and especially attentive. So much so that I once thought, I must be incredibly lucky to have a man who notices every little detail like that. He remembered the day of my midterms. He'd video call me just to see me smile before bed. Every morning, he'd send a sweet message with a soft song and captions that made me feel like I was his entire world. I was touched. I trusted him. And I loved him. But it turns out that special attention was just a mask, carefully wrapped around a deeply rooted obsession with control. It all started with what seemed like an innocent question. "Why did you like that guy's story?" I laughed and told him, "He's just a classmate. It was just a beach photo." He went silent for an hour, then 3. That night, he checked my phone. No asking, no permission. While I was washing my face, he went through all my messenger chats, my Instagram DMs, and even cross-checked numbers on Zalo. When I stepped out, I saw him sitting calmly on the couch, scrolling through my phone like he was reading a stolen diary. "How long have you known this guy?" I froze. It was just an old friend asking about the exam. I hadn't even replied yet. He slammed my phone on the table. "I don't like my girlfriend messing around with other guys." From that day on, I wasn't myself anymore. I wasn't allowed to follow anyone except girls. I couldn't post pictures in anything slightly fitted. I wasn't allowed to hang out in any group that had even one guy, even if it was just a tutoring session. Slowly, I disappeared from my circle of friends. Once a social, outgoing girl, I began making excuses to skip group meetups. I wiped my social media like someone exiled, not because I wanted to, but because I was tired of having to explain. I thought I was preserving our love, but really, I was sacrificing the most basic freedom, the freedom to be myself. I started losing sleep, developed anxiety. I even began fearing the vibration of my phone. Every time a notification popped up, I'd wonder, is someone texting me that'll make him angry? It all reached a peak when he said, "If you keep studying with those guys, don't blame me for no longer seeing you the same." That wasn't jealousy. That was a warning, a carefully disguised threat to my dignity. And I realized, if I didn't get out, I wouldn't just lose friends. I'd lose my voice. I asked him to meet at the cafe where we had one of our first memories. No tears, no begging. Just one simple sentence. "I think we should break up." He smirked. And for the first time, I saw a version of him that had no love, no regret, just coldness, and something dangerous brewing behind those eyes. I thought it would all end that day. But it turns out, that was only the beginning. The beginning of a war I had no idea I'd be fighting, because no one ever taught me this truth. Some men don't just break up with you. They come for revenge. I used to think that if a breakup ended peacefully, both people would choose to respect at least a part of what they once shared. But for him, a breakup wasn't an ending. It was a declaration of war. And even though I had walked away from the relationship, I was still being dragged into his quiet, calculated revenge, silent, cruel, and nearly impossible to trace right away. 3 days after we said goodbye, I started getting strange messages. Unknown numbers, unfamiliar names, but the tone, I knew it. "How long did it take for you to sleep with someone else after the breakup?" Your parents would be thrilled to see these messages. Then came screenshots of old chats between us, not explicit, but personal enough to suffocate a girl raised in a conservative household. I knew immediately. It was him. No one else had access to those messages. No one else had a reason to use them against me. Except him. I stayed silent, deleted the messages, blocked the numbers. But the messages kept coming, from different numbers, fake Instagram accounts. He wasn't just stalking me online, he started showing up at the places I frequented, the parking lot, the library, even the cafe across from my dorm. He never came close, just stood there, watched, then walked away. Just enough for me to know he was tracking where I was, what I was doing, and who I was with. And it made me afraid of my own presence. I told my best friend, the one person I thought I could trust. She hugged me, told me not to panic, advised me to report it to the school. I listened, But when I went to the student counselor's office, the advisor just raised an eyebrow and asked, half concerned, half judgmental, "How long has it been since the breakup? Are you sure you're not being a bit too easy?" I froze. No one asked if I felt threatened. No one cared that I was living under the constant fear of having my privacy exposed. Just judgment, disguised as a passing comment, but heavy, like a stone pressing down on my chest. I walked out of that office feeling like someone who had just been sentenced. Not the victim, but the one at fault. Guilty of moving on too fast, guilty of loving the wrong person, guilty of not protecting my own reputation. A few weeks later, I started hearing whispers in the hallway. That I was two-timing, that I used sex to keep a boyfriend, that I was the toxic one all along. He wasn't just destroying me through texts anymore. He had turned the entire university into a battlefield where I was always the one to blame. Every rumor, spoken by his mouth, but passed along through the faces I once called friends. Even my new boyfriend started getting threatening messages. "Heard you're dating my leftovers. Touch her again and I'll slit your throat." I reported it to campus security, to administration. They promised to keep an eye on things. But I knew, if I didn't protect myself, no one else would. And then I realized something even more terrifying than revenge. He wasn't just coming after me. He was trying to isolate me completely. From teachers, from friends, from the man I love. Everyone was being pulled into the trap he'd set. And I was the bait at the center. When I thought I'd hit rock bottom, at least I still believed. I have her. My best friend. The one who held my hand after our first freshman year exam, cried with me when I failed, gripped my shoulders during a high fever meltdown and said, "No matter what happens, I'm here." But just a few weeks after everything fell apart with my ex, she began to disappear, quietly. My texts were left on seen with no reply. Plans to meet were always turned down with a busy or not feeling well. Day by day, I started to feel like I was being avoided, like I'd become some sort of toxic version of myself that needed to be kept at arm's length. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe I was asking for too much. But then I overheard a conversation between her and two of our mutual friends in the girls' bathroom. I walked in before they noticed. I heard her talking, and it was gross, so fake. What? Yeah, acting all pitiful in front of us, but trash-talking everyone behind their backs. No guy leaves for no reason. She's definitely the problem. And the soft, familiar laugh at the end was hers. I stepped back. My heart went cold. I didn't say anything, didn't confront, didn't cry. I just felt shattered. She, my one person, the only one I confided in after the breakup, the one I thought I'd never lose, was turning her back on me in the cruelest way, twisting the truth, planting doubt, and creating a distorted version of me for our entire friend group to judge. I didn't know what exactly had been said. I didn't know who told what to whom, but I started to realize someone was out there telling my story, their way, and the only person who knew all the pieces was him, because I had trusted both of them. And maybe, just maybe, they were using that trust against me. A week later, I saw them sitting next to each other in the library. Nothing overtly romantic, but the closeness between them wasn't something I'd seen before. He reached out, gently brushed the hair off her neck. She smiled. That smile, the one I used to think was meant for me. Or for our bubble tea hangouts, just the two of us. A few days later, I saw a story they posted, laughing with the friend group. The same group where I used to be the one behind the camera. That moment, I didn't feel jealous, not even heartbroken over lost love. I felt betrayed by someone I once called family without blood. I started piecing it all together. How did she know things only he and I had talked about in private? How could she believe lies unless someone whispered them first? Maybe he went to her. Right after I turned away. To vent, to play the victim, to spin the heartbroken guy left behind narrative while painting me as the traitor. And she believed him. I used to think a best friend would defend you before you even asked. But I was wrong. Some people don't need a knife to stab you. All they need is the right whisper at the right time to the right ear. I used to reassure myself, maybe they're just friends. Even though deep down I already sensed something was off. something that didn't align with the usual bond between two people who once stood on my side. But soon, the truth didn't need my imagination anymore. It revealed itself, undeniably, unmistakably, on a Friday night. That evening, I went out to dinner with a few old friends. One of them, the kind who never fully buys into gossip, had invited me out, hoping it would lift my mood. The restaurant wasn't big. The right corner by the glass window was a familiar spot, where she and I, once best friends, used to sit and talk for hours on weekends. I walked past it, not expecting anything, until I stopped, because what I saw hit me like a slap to the last piece of trust I had left. Him and her, sitting side by side, laughing, hands brushing, boldly, not accidentally, exchanging glances that only two people starting something new would share. I stood there, frozen. Not because my heart broke like in the movies. It didn't shatter. It emptied, hollowed out. Turns out I wasn't being paranoid. I had just been brushing away the truth to protect the fragile dignity I had left for an old friendship. I turned away. Didn't cry. There were no tears left to cry. From that moment on, the rumors became reality in everyone's eyes. She no longer hid it. She walked with him at school events, the talent show, the year-end festival, even in selfies posted regularly to her story. No one believed me anymore. They looked at me like I was the loser. In love, in friendship, in everything. She didn't deny it, didn't explain, didn't offer me a single word. Worse, she used silence like a weapon, letting me drown in the chaos they had created. Every step I took across campus came with whispers. Every scroll on social media brought reshared photos of them, tagged with captions like, "True love comes after the storm." I wanted to scream, to tell the world what they had done behind my back. But I realized my truth no longer had an audience. They had shared their version too soon. And I, because I tried to stay kind, because I clung to some sense of pride, arrived too late to my own story. So I started avoiding them, not out of fear, but because I needed to survive. I moved my study groups online, cut ties with everyone who used to sit at the same table as her. I went back to the small things, reading, taking care of myself, walking at dusk when their faces no longer blurred into the crowd. And little by little, I came to understand. I didn't lose. I was just dragged into a play full of lies, and the audience had already bought tickets before I even stepped on stage. But that role, I don't want it anymore. Because if what he gave me was truly love, it wouldn't have turned into betrayal. And if what she and I had was a real friendship, it wouldn't have been traded so easily. I used to believe that some wounds would heal if I was just patient enough, but I've learned that some pain isn't meant to be healed. It needs to be faced, accepted, and pulled out of your soul like a splinter that's been lodged deep in your skin for months. I no longer expect an apology, not from him, not from her, because people who hurt you on purpose rarely think they've done anything wrong. And if I kept standing there, waiting for a sorry to set me free, I'd stay a prisoner, locked inside an emotional prison I built for myself. So I started rewriting my days. Not in a journal, but in the way I chose to live. I moved, away from the dorm that held too many chaotic memories. I enrolled in a writing class just so I could sit in a room where no one knew my story. No pitying looks, no whispered gossip, just me and the words. I changed my profile picture, deleted all the old photos, not to erase the past, but to remind myself I deserve a fresh page. I began sleeping again, eating full meals without choking on resentment, taking walks without constantly glancing over my shoulder, and I started smiling again, not for anyone else, but because I had rescued myself. You know something? Coming back to life after being buried under heartbreak. It's not like in the movies. It's slow, like sunlight filtering through the clouds after a storm. Soft, but warm. One day I saw them, still walking side by side like a picture-perfect couple, but this time I didn't look away. I walked past them, head high, steps steady. I heard the sudden silence as they saw me. No remorse in their eyes, no smug defiance either. Just awkwardness, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost something they'll never find again, someone who once loved them with everything. And in that moment, I knew. I had forgiven. not for their sake, but for mine. For the version of me who once loved the wrong person, trusted the wrong friend, and exhausted herself trying to save something unworthy. I learned that kindness is not weakness, and walking away is not defeat. I no longer need to prove I'm better than anyone, because real growth isn't in how loud you clap back. It's in how you rise when everything around you tries to bury you. I still have soft days, still replay old songs and feel a tiny ache. But this time, I don't let it drown me. I let it pass, like a breeze. And I smile, knowing I'm no longer that girl from those powerless days. If you're still reading these final lines, thank you. Truly, thank you. Not because my story is more special than anyone else's, but because you stayed until the end, to witness something most people choose to ignore. That betrayal doesn't always come from an ex. Sometimes it wears the face of the friend you once believed would hold your hand through every storm. That pain doesn't always scream or bleed. Sometimes it's just a cold glance, a fast-spreading rumor, a silence timed perfectly to hurt, and that there are moments when you quietly ask yourself, maybe I deserved this? I'm telling this story, not so that someone will hate them for me, not for pity either. I share it because I know there are people out there, just like me, enduring in silence. People who were judged simply for walking away from something toxic. People who were labeled the betrayer just for choosing to love themselves. If you're one of them, here's what I want to say to you. You are not crazy. You are not weak. And you are not to blame. You have the right to hurt, the right to feel disappointed, the right to not be okay. And you don't need to be strong right away just to earn someone else's respect. All I ask is, don't lose yourself for someone who doesn't see your worth. Because one day, when the pain fades, when you're strong enough to look back, you'll realize you didn't lose. You just learned to walk away from what never deserved you. And that is the most beautiful kind of victory. This is the end of the story. If it touched you in any way, please leave a comment, like, share, or subscribe. It would mean the world and give us more motivation to create our next video. Thank you for listening, take care, and see you in the next one.